Hey everybody, thank you so much for joining me today. It occurred to me that in this particular time we needed to do this little video because Highland Games are in trouble most everywhere, especially since the pandemic, and now high gas prices and rising grocery prices and rising everything prices have made it so hard. So we need to tell you about advertising your games. And I know what you're saying. We don't have a lot of money, but I'm going to tell you ways that don't cost much money, if any. The only thing that happens for sure in advertising is that if you do not advertise, nothing happens. Now, games committees work hard to make their own games wonderful and unique. But it's hard to keep going financially if you don't have the attendance to support the necessary expenses it takes to produce a whole weekend of music, competition, and fun, or even one day. If you are involved with the games, I hope you'll listen to this. I think there might be a few things here that will help you understand how to help make up some of those people who nowadays can't afford to travel long distances and who will not be buying tickets. Today, it's more important than ever to be sure you draw to your gates the ones who can come, the local population, and those who live within short distances of your event. It does not make any difference if you plan and execute the most fantastic weekend of Scottish entertainment and athletics. It doesn't matter if your committee has worked 365 days and nights. If your committee has done just the best they can do, it doesn't matter that you've hired the most fabulous entertainers. Nothing matters in regards to what a good job you've done if nobody knows about it. It's just a fact. People cannot come to your event if they are not informed of what's going on and also the when and where and who and why, etc. How do you do that? Advertising. I've been selling advertising since junior high school, I guess. Then we did the John Gorey News, and it was in the early days. Our school secretary would take all of our paperwork and type it, just like it was going to go in the paper. And of course, in those days, we did not have computers, and we could not justify, that means make the margins even back then. Today, we do it without thinking about it on the computer. But back then, the school secretary would type our paper, and then we would make a bunch of copies, and the entire journalism class sat there and counted each and every letter, and then went back in and put check marks in pencil where they were needed to be more spaces, so when it was retyped it would come out to the required number of letters, so both margins would be even throughout the little publication. That was in the days before WORK had become a four-letter word. Eventually, I was editor of that paper and was co-editor of Lee's Traveler, the publication of Robert E. Lee Senior High School in Jacksonville, Florida. In both capacities, there were ads to be sold. Every group to which I have ever belonged since has asked me to be editor of something, and I have. And in order to be able to produce the publication, ads have to be sold. I was the first woman ever to sell a yellow page display ad in the Jacksonville, Florida phone book. Early on, I was the first woman ever to be hired in the advertising department of a Sears Roebuck store anywhere in the whole nation. I'll never forget Bud Penny and Ira Capps, who began to teach me the rudiments of building a professional advertisement. And this was in the days of hot type. Later on, I studied a very long time and was made with an A+ examination, a certified radio marketing consultant by the National Association of Broadcasters. That's a very prized thing to be. I'm proud to say I was always the top salesperson at any radio station or any other place I worked that had salespeople, and I was one. Later still, I sold advertising for my earlier version of my paper I do now. Now it's Beth's Newfangled Family Tree. Used to be just the Family Tree. I was told I sold more than $4 million worth of advertising for that early paper over the course of some years. This is all to explain to you that most of my life has been devoted to the science of advertising. I am sometimes amazed at things that people say. Last year you told us that we could recoup the cost of our newsletter with advertising. I put a little notice in the newsletter, but nobody called me to tell me they wanted an ad. Is one thing I have heard a bunch of times. Folks, ads do not very often arrive on your doorstep. You must go out and get them by calling and visiting and returning on certain dates at certain times and making many, many, many calls. Now, this is a two-part video, so we'll do this again next week, except we'll get into the nitty-gritty of a bunch of things you can do to advertise your Highland games that don't cost any money at all, and some that it just costs a little tiny bit of money. Thank you so much for being with us. We look forward to coming next week.